Hi artists, this video will talk a little bit about sculpting and smoothing or adding texture depending what you're needing to do to your paper mache base. So this guy now has had 2 layers of paper towel laid over, so it's quite strong. But either using this paper clay, or you might use some wall spackle. These come in little nice small packages. Or some drywall compound, just not the DAP brand, the pink stuff. It doesn't work as well. Or you also can experiment with an additional layer of either using paper towel or toilet paper, and a bit more of the paper mache paste that you've mixed up, just getting these into smaller pieces and really ripping them up. So I'll show you a few tips and tricks about how these work. So first up, the paper clay. Once you've opened this, and you might just take a few pieces that you know you're going to work with. So you can see it really resembles a Play-Doh or a clay. Once you've opened that package, you want to store it, keep the other pieces stored in a totally sealed, totally airtight container. So that could be a thick freezer bag, that could be a plastic Tupperware, whatever you may have handy. Okay. And then with the paper clay, it can help to keep your hands wet or damp. So you can use just a damp kitchen towel, an old one. This is also really good for smoothing later on the sculpture. But I can either start to apply thin layers, and you'll see how the paper clay, I can just use my fingers here. If I was working on this ear, it kind of just almost sticks. The paper sticks to the paper. And this is a really thin, I'd say 2 millimeter kind of layer, and it just gives me a little more control. But I also can either roll out, right, or press out as well, specific shapes. Could even use a basic kitchen knife or something like that if you're looking to add some type of a additional depth or form to it. So that might be something that you do. If I needed a bit more of a chin shape here, this is a good opportunity. But just be careful that you're not applying it too thickly, because it will not necessarily dry as quickly as we might like. So smaller layers, thinner layers are kind of the best, and just pressing in, again, smoothing. So if I wanted to build up this ridge on the nose a bit better, I can absolutely do that here, okay, with the paper clay. So you don't have to cover the whole sculpture with any of this paper clay, although that is an option. It sometimes makes it a little easier to paint, and again, it's going to give you a fair bit of time to smooth everything out and add it in before it's fully dry. It will take a day or maybe 2 to fully dry. If you need to build a larger piece, you can do it using paper clay. So let's say I wanted to even these out a little bit. I wanted to add like a tip. What I can do is actually sculpt small pieces apart from the paper mache. Okay, and once I have it formed the way I want, you can put this guy in an oven to bake at about 350 degrees for 10 to 20 minutes. Now, the white paper clay will turn to more of a burnt color, more of a tan kind of tone, and it can also be really fragile if you bake it in the oven. So if instead you need to sculpt little things and glue them on later, best to just do all those little pieces, smaller the better, separately, right? And then you can let them dry overnight or over the next couple days just on a shelf or in a warm, dry place, and then you can include them as well. Similar to the paper clay, you also might make use of either a spackle or a drywall compound. And the tools to kind of use with this, again, of course, is our fingers. So you can just come right in here, and if there's areas like where it wrinkled and I really had some trouble, this is going to help cover and sort of hide or build up all those little blemishes. So fingers are just a great applicator, but another really good applicator is actually just a rubber spatula. Okay? I'm going to come in with my drywall compound here and applying a thin layer with this spatula over the surfaces of your sculpture. Again, you may not need it everywhere. You may choose that. It's just going to give you a little more control to really smooth things out. And then for additional smoothing, that's that damp paper towel. Just fold it under and kind of give it a very light wipe. Okay, you may want to wait an hour or two and then come back at this with a paper towel, because if it's all just freshly applied, you can see here how that's kind of just wiping itself away. Okay, and also this drywall compound or the wall spackle, it works wonderfully well over top of the paper clay, or to help just reinforce that, help make sure that it's adhering and it's all kind of sticking on nicely. Okay. Last option is to simply come back in to your paper mache, but you're going to use it in a different method. You're going to maybe use a softer towel than the paper towel or the brown paper towel that you were using previously. And you can kind of rip it up into little bits and get it goopy. You can see how with a little bit of kneading and massaging, this closely resembles the paper clay. So this might be an easier solution if you're not wanting to work with that. So let's say I wanted to build on kind of more of a brow form here. I can achieve that using this very soft toilet paper, or you can do the same idea here with a paper towel. But again, you're kind of just making sure that it's really, really saturated and really soft. You could even add a bit more water to this or get this wet first. And again, I'm just going to come back up here. So maybe this will give me sort of that brow shape if I were choosing to add something like that to the sculpture. So I'm going to continue getting all these surfaces, trying to avoid any of these wrinkles or folds or lumps. That's where all of this in one final layer is going to smooth it out for you. And once it's fully dry, we're going to move on to painting.